We're there.
All right. Hola, cage fighting connoisseurs. This is Eugene. I'm Nate. We are live and in person at Machine Works Jiu-Jitsu in San Leandro, California.
Yeah, he made the roadie.
I came to him. The world traveler here couldn't make his way to Texas. Are you coming to South by Southwest?
We've done that 8 times, and then we decided, like, at this point now, driving all the way to Austin is just bone-crunchingly ball-destroying, and we'll never do it again.
So unless I go to Brussels or France, where he's often found, this will probably be the only in-person.
We're going to play Texas again, but maybe just not South by.
Oh, that would be
last time we played South by, it was a huge riot because I took my pants off. So the police came. And
I heard a little bit about this. Yes, but anyway, back to the topic. Yes, we're going to be breaking down the UFC 155 card. We've already talked about the heavyweight title main event, so we're going to be talking about everything else on the card. Jim Miller versus Joe Lausanne, the return of Chris Weidman, Melvin Guillard versus Jamie Varner, the return of Todd Duffy, et cetera, et cetera. We're also going to talk about Liz Carmouche coming out, the first openly gay fighter in the UFC. She's going to be fighting Ronda Rousey. Openly gay fighter.
I'm no fool. I'm not going to assume that she is the only gay fighter in the UFC.
I remember, it's not gay if you don't make eye contact.
What was it? Albini said it's like prison rape, but without the bunk beds.
Yes.
Which Vice magazine cut that.
Vice magazine is cramping Albini's style.
I was very disappointed. So.
But we're going to start out by discussing the inexplicable bromance between Cris Cyborg and her manager Tete-A-Tete. Eugene,
I love that.
Riddle me this. Why? You're Cris Cyborg. You're suspended. You've been stripped of your title. They killed your division. You get divorced. You hire a new manager. And it's Tete-A-Tete.
Well, have you ever seen that it's a great YouTube clip of her training with Tito, where she just brings it to him, which, considering that wrestling is not something that you can learn in a high school in Brazil, she is more than an able and adept match for him in terms of wrestling. Actually shoots, takes him down, and really effortless. I don't know where she was in her cycle at that point, but cycle or not, that's nothing that steroids are going to help you do. So
yeah, she's very skilled.
Yeah, she was really skilled. He was there. He asked, and he's looking for legitimacy. He couldn't have been. I love that. The post UFC. It's like that line from Spinal Tap. Do I have to come right out and say it? And he just stood in the cage there and he said, Dana, I need a job. Chuck is working for the UFC. I think I should work for the UFC.
He should have thought about that a few years ago before
I should, yeah. But
I'm
shocked actually that he needs the jack.
Maybe he needs something to do. But then again, Jenna's got expensive taste. But Jenna's a money machine. Jenna is a business queen. I've never questioned her business acumen. Tito's business acumen, on the other hand.
You caught me. I'm like, don't say it. Don't say anything. We got kids. It's a family show today.
I'm just talking about her prowess as an entrepreneur. That's all I'm saying.
Entrepreneur what? What is she doing?
She's got her own website.
What is she selling on her website?
What does she do? She's selling porn and sundries.
Which you could get for free.
Well, sure, it's a tough business, but she's got a brand. I don't know. She's
unless she's going on tour dancing. Yeah, I don't know how she's making money.
That's.
I don't really want to see her dance. So
No, she's past the sell-by date.
I guess she's got the book, but having a book myself, I can tell you that
I did a book.
it's not going to make you rich. So
no. Yeah, they probably spend a little bit of money, Tito and Jenna.
It could be. At the very least, you got property tax. So. Maybe they got.
Well, so none of this is solving the mystery because Cyborg seems like she could find any number of reputable, competent managers to handle her career, and Tito seems to be bent, like coming out and saying he's going to insist on a 140-pound catch weight. Like, why would the UFC have a catch weight when they're 135 and put their 135-pound champion in it when she could very well lose to the very dangerous Cris Cyborg? Right. And then what do you have? You have nothing. Yeah. Cyborg's not the champion. Cyborg can't fight in the division. Everybody just saw Ronda Rousey lose to Cyborg, so it's a head-scratcher.
Well, on the one hand, I could see Cyborg making this decision. Tito's in. At the very least, he can get Dana to return his calls. They may not be.
I mean, do we know this?
Screaming.
Do we know this?
I get the vibe. Yeah, I get the vibe.
Okay.
That he, because, and you know why? Because Tito. What is the thing about friends close and enemies closer? I mean, Tito is at this point could hold a press conference and people would show up for the press conference.
It's true. We'd cover it at Bloody Elbow.
Yeah, and could say any old...
Tito says something stupid again.
Right.
Always works.
Say any whack shit about the UFC. I mean, in other words, it's easier to keep him in the fold than it is to have him, like in Apocalypse Now, operating beyond any reasonable control out there. You don't know what the hell. A guy like that, you don't know. A guy with a beard like that, you don't know what the hell he'll do.
Tito's late to the beard party.
Yeah.
I think that might be the end of the beard trend.
Tito,
it's the tipping point. Tito, once he's grew a beard, it's over, guys.
I don't like to quote Beck really, but Beck said something really funny. He said, this is the first time in human history where the mustache hasn't been a mustache. Like the mustache has like 4 or 5 different shades of meaning. It could mean, it could be an ironic mustache. It could be historical ironic. It could be present ironic. He goes, you have to analyze the mustache now. Facial hair never had to be analyzed before. First time in human history. And now they have Movember, that stupid thing. I don't even want to know. Don't even in the comments. Don't even begin to ask or tell me or explain. I don't want to know.
No,
some stupid.
I tune it out.
Stupid.
La.
So the thing with Tito, I think Tito. I mean, from Cyborg's point of view, Tito gets his phone calls returned by Dana White. Tito is a motivated seller at this point.
He seems like a good guy. If you saw the Ultimate Fighter season he coached, a smart coach, caring coach.
I always think about that guy. The guy Evan Smith who wrote the book Generation Kill. Is that his name? He was one of the first guys after me to cover the UFC. He did it for Rolling Stone, and he said to me something interesting about Tito. He goes, Tito has never been anything nice to me, but I find myself not wanting to like the guy because he reminds me of every guy in high school who I hated. I go, these guys bouncing your head off of lockers? He goes, maybe. Yep. So,
Tito's clearly a jock. You're not going to hide that Tito was a jock. Presumably a big, aggressive jock in high school.
You know what I like about Tito? But what people don't understand who are not coming at it from a California context, they don't understand that he is Huntington Beach through and through. And let me tell you, the first time I went to Huntington Beach, because there's like
the legendary Helmet Black Flag.
That's right.
The birthplace of hardcore.
Right. Hermosa Beach and Huntington Beach, the whole thing. So the first time I went there, I was like totally like, man, this is like Huntington Beach strut. This is the place. And we're driving, like, look at this. And some guys pull up next to us in a car, and they look at us, and they lean out the window with hammers and start trying to hammer our car off the road.
Welcome to town. Welcome to HB.
Welcome to HB. So, I mean, and if you think of it, it was Tito's fight. I think it was Guy Metzger, or was it early fight against
the first
Ken Shamrock,
fight
where he flipped the double bird, and that he made his bones, man.
That's true. With the T-shirts.
Right. Wes Sims, too, when he was getting beaten up by somebody.
Is Wes Sims HB?
No, he's not HB,
okay.
but it's the same kind of like...
You're subject jumping.
And I'm subject
to it,
but it ties in. It ties in.
Bring it back.
He's getting beaten up, and he flips the bird at the camera, and people are like, this goes to my theory of America really doesn't like... We don't love winners. So a guy who can look great in defeat is worth his weight in gold. So Tito will be around... forever. So Cyborg's got Dana returns his calls. Tito will be around forever, and he's really motivated to make a go of this because it's like now his second career. I mean, dude's what? How old is he?
36.
Yeah, exactly. Was he going to do nothing for the rest of his life? He's got to do something.
It's true. It's true.
No
so
more
we'll
TV
be
shows, no more T-shirt
We'll be watching
lines.
him mismanaging fighters' careers.
Well, but I mean, Cyborg. Who else would she work with? The fact that she didn't go with Soares means a lot. You don't know who. Like I said,
Soares, it seems like, and this is another tangent, but I'm seeing other people being referred to as Anderson Silva's manager. I mean, it seems like the Soares empire might be a little entropy happening there.
Well, you never know. I mean, the thing is, everybody. Yes, I'm taking Arnica because I hurt my back wiping a kitchen counter.
Keeping it real,
after
kids.
a 21-hour airplane ride, I hurt my back. So I think what happens in Brazil is this mysterious, crazy.
Stays
thing.
in Brazil pretty much.
Like the guy who was the guy who was Vinny Magalhães. I was like, I'm asking all my Brazilian friends. You're like, they all hate Vinny Magalhães. I said, why do you hate? Because he's a Creante. Why is he a Creante? Because he helped, a long time ago, he helped Chael Sonnen.
Yep.
Against Anderson
Silva.
So the guy is like, shit.
He's been exiled from the Brazilian community.
Yeah. So he said, you can do whatever you want in America. You come home, we hate you. So it could be that, to avoid all that, the Cyborg has made the best decision.
Well, we'll see if Tito can get her in the cage against Ronda Rousey. I'll take it all back.
You know what? Look, let me tell you, that's like selling crack. Like Chris Rock or whoever or Dave Chappelle said. There's not a single salesman sitting around with, I got all this extra crack I can't sell. What am I going to do? Cyborg. All roads eventually lead to Cyborg.
That's true. They need Cyborg. They got Sarah McMahon, the Olympic wrestler, who's on the horizon, but she has no name value. Nobody's really seen her fight. She's very talented, and I think they could build her up into something. Mm-hmm. They've got Miesha Tate again, which we've already seen Ronda almost break her arm. So they need Cyborg. They do need Cyborg.
What I would hope is that in the interim time between cashing royalty checks, that Gina Carano has actually been working on her skills because it's prime for her return.
Yep.
She's not going to beat Santos. And I don't think she'll beat Rousey.
She shouldn't get in the cage with Santos again. No. I just have this vision of.
Yeah. But she probably fights better than she acts. I don't know.
Could be the movie she made with Soderbergh didn't do any better than the movie he did with Sasha Grey, and she got slightly better reviews for her acting than Sasha Grey did. So, which I never even thought Sasha
Grey has a solid career to fall back on.
I don't. I gotta say, I'm a Tory black man. I thought Sasha was faking it the whole time.
I don't know what he's talking about.
She did good interviews though. She created a good persona, but I didn't think she delivered on screen. Not that I would know. I've heard.
Well, SkullGame.com used to be, that's a really dirty, filthy tangent. Anyway.
We got there's kids here, my brother's here. We got a ton of. So have we covered this topic?
Yeah, first of all, I think that some things we want to establish. We need to see Cyborg back.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
We want to see this. Is that right?
Yes. And Cyborg's tough. She's a good fighter, and she seems like a sweet gal. She seems like a sweetheart. Her heart's on her sleeve.
Yep.
Her heavily muscled.
Heavily muscled. But the thing is, the whole performance enhancing thing. I'm just as happy having women not take it because it changes them in ways that are permanent and elemental. So And I like to see. I think it's better for the sport if the fighters don't look like East German swimmers.
Exactly. So, I was about to bring up the classic East German ladies swim team.
And say what you want about Gina Carano. I think she has a lot to do with upping the profile of women's MMA.
She pretty much invented women's MMA as a going concern.
Because a pretty girl who could fight. What was that Prince line? I never seen a pretty girl look this tough.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
Right.
Yes, indeed.
So we'd like to see her, and it's inevitable. It would take a major. He would really have to rise to the occasion to screw this up. So it's a win-win for both.
It is Tito Ortiz. Do you remember his announcing at the Affliction when he did the commentary at the Affliction event?
Okay,
it was people are still diagramming the sentences he threw out there, trying to figure out what in the hell was he saying. He was. At one point, Vitor Belfort was 300 years old. It was a remarkable.
You need an HB translator. Like every time Phil Barudi speaks, people look at me because I'm from Brooklyn. Like I can what did he just say? And I'll tell you later. The guy who goes, but suck up. What he said was.
Phil. So this is a good time to segue to Liz Carmouche, the first openly gay fighter in the UFC history, as far as we know. There was the one tough fighter, Dakota Cochran, who had done some gay porn. Strictly gay for pay, guys. Was not gay. So
suddenly a lot more about all this stuff.
I covered that story extensively because it was traffic gold, my man. That story paid.
Really?
Oh yeah, man.
Is he currently fighting still?
No, he fought like one or two more times and lost. I think the next week fight. He washed out the Ultimate Fighter. In the first fight.
Right, that's right.
So that was all a big letdown for those of us looking to exploit America's interest in prurient subject matter for cheap web clicks, but
there was that Republican guy who they discovered he was like some kind of congressmen, and they said, well, you know, we found that you're a gay escort. He goes, I'm not gay. He goes, but you're an escort. Yeah, so it's an escort. And you had sexual contact with men. Yes, but I'm not gay. And I love this whole thing in America. Once I had some guys at my house who were standing in a 3-foot ditch with a pickaxe, and I said, "Ah, man."
Why did you have a 3-foot ditch in your house?
I had some pipes put in.
I see. You know, just to know if that was like a regular feature.
No. It was outside the house.
Oh, okay.
The guys were laying, and I said, "Man, you plumbers got it." And the guy looks at me in all seriousness and goes, "I'm not a plumber." And suddenly I started noticing I couldn't find anybody who was what they would, you know.
Well, there's definitely no secretaries in America.
There are no secretaries.
You
there
can't
are no
say
stewardesses.
mailman anymore.
There are no, you know. Look, I'm trying to bring back bum, you know, because bum was like the later generation of hobo. Okay, a guy who made a principled decision to live on the street because he would rather spend money on wine than on an apartment, right? Then you call a homeless person a bum. All homeless people aren't bums, but there are some bums. And the bums, as far as I'm concerned, should lobby for the return of bum.
Bum pride.
So this is kind of far afield from the gay thing, the gay fighters. I mean, I imagine there are a lot of, you're going to tell me, Liz Carmouche is the only fighter in the UFC who's had a same-sex sexual relationship?
No chance. Zero chance. Zero chance of that. Zero chance of that.
You know, there was a guy that did a piece on the New York Times who had... he wasn't a UFC, but he was an MMA fighter. And he was talking about how he decided to get into MMA because he was getting into street fights. And part of getting into street fights, it was a real simple calculation. He goes, I could go out to bars with my friends and try to pick up women, which I had no interest in, or I could just conclude the evening with a fight. And nobody sussed out that, you know, it was a great place for repressed homosexuals to hide out. You know what? I'm going down. You know, Jimmy's crazy. Got to another fight, you know. That girl was talking to him, and next thing I know, he's swinging on somebody. So I think you know, this solves a lot. It kills several birds with you know, several single stones. I mean, Dana has gotten the sport in general. You know, there's a thin line between machismo and homoerotic, but then there's also Dana White with his, you know, F-word bomb.
Frequent use of homophobic slurs, which he seems to be staying away from.
Yeah, well, he's realizing.
It's sadder but wiser.
What he does when the camera's off is very different from what he does when the camera's on. And we understand how he was using it. But at this point, you know, language means a lot, you know. I mean.
Well, I think the whole deal with this is just the sea change we've had in this country in the last 4 years. Yes, machine works. Nobody cares anymore. Yeah. Gay marriage just happened. It was going to be the end of the world, and then now it's not. Yeah. And the poll numbers, everything, and it just doesn't seem like people care anymore. So, hooray! Yeah. And so Liz Carmouche, I think, is a perfect. She's confident. She knows who she is. She's a good fighter. Hey, you know, this is me.
And she looks nice too.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
It doesn't fit into any uncomfortable stereotypes.
And I think people are more comfortable with lesbians than male homosexuals to some extent. So it's kind of breaking the ice, And then, you know, so we'll see. I don't know. I think I'll be very curious to see how the pay-per-view sells, though. You know, UFC 157, Ronda Rousey versus Liz Carmouche is the headliner. First women's fight in UFC history, and it's headlining pay-per-view card.
Well, did you catch this? This was one of the things, and I'm going to make a weird tangent here before I weave back into it. This is one of the things like the original Son of Sam sketchings. The original Son of Sam sketchings had a narrow-faced Latino-looking dude in them. Later, David Berkowitz was arrested, heavy set, you know.
Looked like Michael Bloomfield.
Yeah, exactly. So there was initially, there was some reports, and I'm sure you've read these or heard these, about Henderson being kind of irked about
his manager. His manager was irked.
And then they backpedaled so fast.
Henderson said, me, I'm not irked.
Okay, they backpedaled on that so fast that by the time I thought, wait, did I imagine that? And went back to check the stories, they were all gone. They were all gone.
They're still on MMA Mania. I don't think we didn't pull any stories.
Oh, well, okay, or at least replaced.
I don't think Bloody Elbow got around to that story.
Dan Henderson coming out and saying, "Oh, you know, I'm actually okay with this." What that guy said. My ex-manager, what he said, you know. So, what did the manager say exactly?
He said he thought it was bullshit that Henderson was on the undercard for a women's fight. You know, I mean, I just thought it was bullshit.
No, but, you know what? He's wrong about that, and I was glad he was silenced. I mean, it's one of those things now when people say that to me as a guy in a band, Oxbow. Oh, you guys want a headline? I go, oh, you mean playing last?
Exactly.
There's no, the people who are here to see you are here to see you. Playing last, there's no status benefit for us to play last. No. Oh, so our name on the poster is a little bit bigger? forget about that. Henderson should be happy because at this point now, all credit is due to him. If the card is a stinker in terms of pay-per-view, you go, hey, not me. I didn't headline this.
Look at it. It was her. It was her.
Yeah, it was her. I guess the world's just not ready. So, I mean, it's, he's Trojan horsing his way through this. And a guy who's his age, I'm a Dan Henderson fan, but I think it's a good move just to keep your mouth shut about this,
Yeah, he's always had a kind of prickly relationship with Dana White and the Fertittas, and I think he should just, especially after the UFC 151 fiasco, which, he ended up, John Jones, of course, took the initial blame, but I think in the end, Dana was not amused that Dan knew he was hurt for 2 or 3 weeks and didn't tell him and fucked him out of putting on that event, even though it was a learning experience for everybody. But now it's time to turn to the UFC 155 card.
Yes.
Pretty stacked card. The fight on the Facebook card, there's Chris Curiaso versus John Moraga, Max Holloway versus Leonard Garcia. Much respect to those fighters. Do we care?
Leonard Garcia, a little
always
bit.
Entertaining.
A little bit, because he's one of those guys that's teetering on a where are they now kind of thing, right? And those, those are the guys that I have love in my heart for those guys. Where are they now guys? So
I'm more of the who is he? I root for those guys, like the guys that never were, that never made their mark, that never had their,
Yeah, but sometimes those guys end up just crushing your heart in the dust if you've been able to. I mean, there's a guy who I know who's not. He's a pro fighter. I'm not going to mention his name. He's been on my show before, and the guy has oodles and oodles of promise. But he's what we used to call a practice superstar. In here, in the mat, guy's just a killer. And then it's now 2 or 3 times the guy's been in the cage, and he's kind of like. Gets really bad case of the yips.
The yips. Joe Riggs was the definitive gym superstar.
Oh, man, but he was uneven in the cage. I mean,
he sometimes performed well. I mean, he managed to perform at a pro level, but people were talking about him as a championship caliber talent.
Yeah, I love Joe Riggs, but I think Joe Riggs had a lot of stuff in his head, on his plate. I mean, when I interviewed him, he was always talking about his family, and so I mean, he had this kind of representative weight of like, man, I got to make the rent. I got to, like they were talking about with John Fitch. He was complaining, I got mortgages to pay, before his fight. It's like, mortgages. That's impressive, my friend. It's like that. Who was it? Patrick Ewing or some basketball player who said, yeah, he said, we make a lot of money, but we spend a lot of money. My heart bleeds for you, man. I'm getting 57 cents worth of gas at the gas station. My heart bleeds for you. I mean, if a guy like that can't be happy, what's,
So you got some interest in Leonard Garcia.
I got some interest in Leonard Garcia, but I was going to be totally quiet about it because I knew the second I opened my mouth, it would jinx it, And I'm not, my interest doesn't extend to me making a pick in that fight. I just want to see Garcia, see where he is now.
I'll definitely be watching it. But the fight that on the Facebook card I care about, Todd Duffy returns against Phil DeFries. Todd Duffy, exiled from the UFC. At one point, he had the quickest knockout in UFC history, 7 seconds, over that Alaskan guy, Tim Hague, I believe it was. And then was quickly booted out of the UFC for just saying a bunch of stupid shit. And apparently just being a dickhead.
Did Mike Russo beat him in the UFC?
Yes, that was that's what I'm missing. The third round knockout to Mike Russo. Duffy beat the crap out of Mike Russo for 3.5 rounds, and then Russo knocked him the fuck out.
Russo, the off-duty cop who only trades every now and then.
Yes, indeed.
But the stupid stuff he said. The guy who used to manage Duffy spoke to me, and it was just Duffy's a moron, and
physically gifted,
but and then of course without his agent and then without the UFC, then he takes an ill-informed fight against
Alistair Overeem on short notice, got crushed.
that fight gives me the chills watching it.
That was ugly and a valuable lesson for the young Mr. Duffy, I'm sure.
But I mean, what he said is just. It's radioactive in the UFC. There are lots of things you could say. You don't like the affliction shirts are ugly. Dana cheats on his wife. Oh, whatever. I didn't say that.
I didn't say that.
There's that guy behind me. There are lots of things you could say, but nothing nothing will get your ass booted faster than complaining about money, you know. And this is something
except threatening to kill the president. But that was War Machine's John Kuppenhaver's mistake. But anyway, that's a tangent. Duffy didn't threaten to kill the president. Good for him. But he did complain about the UFC.
Did War Machine get booted for that?
He got booted, and that was one of the fucking stupid things he did. That might have been what got him kicked out of... No, I'm pretty sure that got him kicked out of the UFC. Because he's still dealing with Bellator.
He what?
Volksman didn't threaten to kill the president. But he just threatened to beat up the president.
We got a peanut gallery. Oh, that's right.
And it was all in good fun-ish, sort of. The Secret Service came, but the UFC didn't seem to care. I mean, this is the... Volkman is a good fighter, but really boring, so that added something.
What was Dana White? I mean, Dana White has managed to lure me back each time. I still laugh when I think about what he said about aspirin. He said aspirin is what Ambien takes when it's having a hard time getting to sleep. I mean, he had to have somebody write that for him, man. That is
pro level. That's pro material. He probably saw a comedian in Vegas.
And you know what? Sadly, I hate to say he was right on that.
I like aspirin.
Do you like him?
That funky wrestling style is endlessly fascinating.
Well, you know, for me, it's interesting to see how high a wrestler can make it in terms of the ranking with just fundamental, you know.
He's added some jiu-jitsu skills. He just won't commit to the submission. So I just think he needs the fear of God. I think he needs to fight somebody that he's actually scared of. So he's like, oh my God, I've got to tap this guy out. But this is tangent. All right, so Todd Duffy, Phil DeFries. Duffy's going to win this. I mean, he's got to win this. Phil DeFries was not impressed in his previous performance.
In this fight to win it. You know, I think it's a gimme. For whatever reason, they like the kid. I think the UFC still has this.
He's got a good look. He's scary. He hits hard. You know, being dumb is not a handicap.
Yeah, and he keeps his mouth. I mean, I think, you know, the UFC has this whole kind of fixation with All-American. And, you know, an All-American pretty much just means, like, white dude. who doesn't have any obvious character defects. You know, like Chris Weidman, you would never describe as All-American. Rich Franklin, you describe as All-American, right? So I think maybe Duffy has, if he can keep his mouth shut, Duffy has the ability to. But I mean, periodically, you know, when the people talk about herding cats, I imagine, you know, just for the sake of the devil's advocacy, you know, being on the Dana White side, Joe Silva side, trying to corral all these cats into like making good decisions versus bad decisions, you know, and then dealing with levels of management and stuff. It's got to be a job that I mean, that's why you say you hire somebody to do fighter development because this would drive you mad. I mean,
hobby horse.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean,
we're on the hobby horse.
You know, they're guys. I mean, can you imagine being part of any organization that's got like Josh Koscheck, Nick Diaz. I mean, can you imagine? This is your job.
Yeah.
You know, your job to get these guys on the phone in the same room.
You're depending on these guys to be at a certain place at a certain time and perform at a certain level. That's very nightmarish. Nightmarish.
I mean, yeah, these guys, you know, make the big money, but some of them maybe earn it.
And before we segue off Duffy, it should be noted he was the first fighter, to my knowledge, to get the Nevada State Athletic Commission to sanction his use of testosterone replacement therapy. Duffy, I think he was 23 at the time.
I wish you hadn't told me what 23-year-old athlete needs testosterone replacement therapy who hasn't already juiced his testes into non-existence.
I'm not talking about Todd Duffy, but yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Generally, the profile of a 23-year-old, of a hulking 23-year-old who needs TRT is that they've monkeyed with their hormone levels a little bit.
I come from the bodybuilding world initially. Mm-hmm. Do you know how many steroids you have to take to make your testes permanently inactive?
Well, you don't have to make them permanently inactive, though. You just need to take enough to make them temporarily inactive, get your testing done, get the doctor's prescription, and off you go.
I have a guy. This is an amusing performance-enhancing drug story. I'll keep it brief. A guy had conned his doctor into saying, I have low testosterone, and I have low testosterone, and I need testosterone replacement. So they said, well, we'll give all a test. So he's on steroids. He says, okay, I'm going to go off steroids suddenly for 3 weeks so that before my testes kick in, so my thing will be low. So he goes in, and his testosterone is so low that they go, oh, my God, your testosterone is so low. They say, of course, but we think maybe there's something wrong with the test, so come in next week.
Uh-oh.
What they didn't know is as soon as they said your testosterone is so low, of course you're cleared for more steroids, he went and just drowned a bunch of steroids. And so when he went in, they go, "This is freaky crazy. Your levels are super high now. You are okay. You don't need any more steroids." He was like, Folger's coffee surprise. Hey kid, quarter the meter.
Feed the meter.
We got people. We'll just check.
Eugene's parked outside.
I don't want to get a ticket.
So now we're going to move to the FX undercard. Starts at 8 p.m. Eastern. 4 fights.
I want to make a little bit of a complaint here. They need to get this stuff. There's a Facebook undercard. There's an FX undercard.
The Fuel. Sometimes it's on Fuel. Sometimes it's on Facebook. How do you know?
I'm a motivated seeker here, and I have no idea how to make this work. Where do I go to see this? You know, it's confusing to me. But okay, whatever. So the FX undercard.
FX undercard. The fight I'm most interested on, a fairly late add to the fight, was the fight that was supposed to happen a couple weeks ago. Melvin Guillard versus Jamie Varner. Yeah. We already made our picks.
I heard that Varner was off. That he had screwed it up somehow.
Again? When did you hear this?
Okay, it could have been when I was overseas.
No, that was he had to drop out of the fight that just happened. They were supposed to be on the tough finale.
Right.
Varner puked. Then they rescheduled it. And I certainly make plenty of mistakes.
He's still fighting Guillard.
Yeah, they rebooked it. It was just a brief illness from the weight cut or whatever. He puked in front of an athletic commissioner. You know, plenty of guys puke before fights. They just don't do it in front of somebody from the athletic commissioner.
I like to.
I mean, I didn't wrestle in high school or anything, but I mean, I puked before. You know, you puke sometimes.
I puked 3 times in my whole life, so that's about
lucky you. Lucky
you. Times that I wasn't an infant. So, I'm still gonna pick Melvin in this. I think his head. If it's going to be a battle of the heads, I think his head is in a much better place and has been consistently for the past year or so. And I think Varner, there's still that real weird X factor of what happened to Jamie Varner that, you don't know or you're not telling me. And I haven't been able to find anybody else who knows, and nobody else is telling me. So, it's one of those things.
It was head troubles, I'm pretty sure.
But, we know it was head troubles, but it was head troubles plus. That's what I don't know. Mike Thomas Brown had head troubles, and apparently he's seeing a sports psychologist because he was gassing. He was doing this adrenaline dump no matter how much cardio he did, he was tired after the first 3 minutes. He goes, that's not natural. And they're working on controlling his emotions. They thought it was biological in nature or some such thing. He's been on Knuckle Up before, a good guy, but it was something else. With Varner, I'm smelling it. It feels to me like drugs. But I think
I picked Varner last time we talked about this, but I'm going to switch in lieu of the fact that it was him who fucked up the fight and not Melvin.
Right.
Which leads me to think Varner's currently, of the two crazies, Varner's currently more crazy than Melvin.
Yeah,
and all else being equal, that'll give us the fight.
But I have to with the whole crazy thing too. I have to. I want to cut these guys some sort of slack. Yeah, I'm not going to lionize these guys, these modern sports hero weirdness. But they're not making a lot of money. No, and this is hard. It is. I just pulled my back wiping a kitchen counter. Oh, okay.
He's old. He's old.
He said that. I didn't say
He travels a lot. And he's old.
Forrest Griffin, I saw pictures of Forrest Griffin's knee from the recent surgery.
Not pretty.
You know what? This guy has got to, all these guys that get hurt, they have all 6-month embargo. He can't fight. Doesn't have a medical clearance for here and that. Okay. It's tough all around. Head, body, it's tough. Life, try to explain. You live in the gym. Well, you smell like Tiger Balm. What? That's not sexy.
No, not a sexy look. So we both got Melvin in this one.
Switch, it should be noted.
I did switch, but due to factors.
It's the persuasion of my argument.
Nah, it was outside factors. That's all you care about. Michael Johnson versus Miles Jury. Quick pick. Any thoughts on this?
I'm going to take Johnson.
Yeah, I got to go with Johnson here too. Eric Perez versus Byron Bloodworth. I'm pretty much in the same camp. I've been a little bit impressed with Perez here, though. Now we've got one that matters. Brad Pickett versus Eddie Wineland. This is a fight that's relevant to the division. Brad Pickett, the very tough knockout artist, and Eddie Wineland, former WEC champ, has really been looking good. His recent fights had some ups and downs. Not quite at championship caliber anymore, but still a serious contender. So for me, this is a very difficult fight. I think it comes down to styles. I think Wineland's got the striking to hang with Pickett without getting knocked the fuck out.
Yep.
And can beat him on the ground. I'm
Yep.
going to go with Wineland.
Yeah, I'm same.
Okay.
Same.
So,
I haven't had that any other way. Except now I'm still shaken from my last.
That's because you picked the old dudes, Eugene.
Yeah.
So let's just don't repeat that.
That's right. Okay. All right, but it's shaking my confidence in my picking ability. I'm not going to advise you to gamble a house on this one.
I see.
But yeah, I think Wineland's a good pick on that.
What I've observed in a few months of working with your picks is when you're going off with the old guy stuff. But otherwise pretty good picks. But just watch for him when he starts rooting for old guys. He's not thinking, he's feeling.
That's right. He's
feeling.
Right.
So now we're up to the main card. Pay-per-view starts 10 p.m. Eastern from the MGM Grand Garden Arena in Las Vegas. Chris Weidman returns to action against late substitute Derek Brunson, who's coming in for Carlos Romola. Brunson fought in Strikeforce a few times, won some, lost some.
Yeah, I've seen him fight.
But late notice, Chris Weidman's had plenty of time to train for this. He's hungry. He looked really good in his last fight before the suspension. He lost to Mark Munoz, but I feel like he's been a better fighter, a different fighter in the last couple of years.
Yeah, and something that Weidman said that I found to be really true, and the guys I know, I was just interviewed Harley Flanagan.
Of the Cro-Mags?
Cro-Mags, his case, he was dismissed for the stabbing and the assault thing, so he's now free man, and he was saying that...
As free as Harley can be.
As Harley can be. And he said he's been... he mentioned when his last fight was. It was a Naga fight, but his last MMA fight was about 4 years ago, and he goes, he hurt his ankle. Actually, it was another guy, a friend of Knuckle Up, who hurt his ankle, David Do or Die Derby, who hurt his ankle. And he said, I've been teaching consistently for 4 years, and this has made me a much better fighter than anything. And I think this is what Weidman has been doing. Weidman has got his
teaching in Hawaii.
He's got his school. He's been teaching. And if that doesn't show,
and he's quit drugs supposedly. They mandated drug rehab. He said that his positive test was a cry for help. That he knew he was going to get caught with what he was doing before the fight. He's been avoiding his old friends, in and out of Vegas. He's not going to spend any time in Vegas. He doesn't have to. He's not going to be hanging out. So
it was Oxy, wasn't it? Supposedly?
Yeah, that was some nasty painkillers. Serious stuff.
I've never found OxyContin did anything for me. It didn't even.
I've never gotten to try it.
I didn't even find it to be an effective painkiller.
Huh? You're not a hillbilly, Eugene.
No, I mean I had some.
I'm from the hillbillies.
I had some surgery and they gave me some, and then I said, "All right, I'm not going to take it. I'll save it." I had some back pain. I took it, and I still felt the back pain. I was just cooled out about it. It was like,
well, that's I think the point.
Yeah,
that's all the hillbillies want. They know it's not going to rebuild their life for them. They just don't care anymore.
That's right. I'm glad to see Weidman back. So
yeah,
I'm picking Weidman this one.
Yeah,
and I don't think it's an emotional pick this time. I think
Brunson's a last minute substitute. Is his first UFC fight. He's going to be on the main card against a UFC legend.
Yep.
Best of luck, and he could surprise everybody, but I'm just not seeing it. I think Chris Weidman. But now we got a serious fight, two serious fights in the middleweight division. We got Yushin Okami versus Alan Belcher up first. It's a rematch of their 2006 fight where Okami just schooled Belcher, spent the whole fight on Belcher's back. He could grapple. Belcher really couldn't at that point, at least not at an Okami level. Since then, Belcher's improved a lot. Okami's had a title shot. Then he came back, lost that badly. Came back against Tim Boetsch, which just looked like a whole new fighter. Was really putting a beating on Tim Boetsch, and then got himself knocked out in the third round. Yep. Belcher, on the other hand, has fought a lot. He had serious retina issues that took him out for a year. Been fighting very infrequently, but his performance have been excellent. And his last fight against Husamar Toquinho Palhares really impressed me. That was a really... It was he went against the leg lock king and went into the lion's mouth, got in the 50-50 guard, defended himself, exploited the vulnerability of the 50-50 guard to just do some face punching and showed, Toquinho's not really a black belt when you after he gets hit in the face 6 or 7 times. And so I'm liking Belcher in this rematch. I think he's on his way up. I think
for his Johnny Cash tattoo, if nothing else.
No, wait. Are you liking the Johnny Cash tattoo?
Everybody who looks at that goes, is that Colonel Sanders?
I'm sorry, Alan. It doesn't look like Johnny Cash. I don't know if anybody's told you that before, but
it's terrible.
You should have brought a photograph to the tattoo parlor.
Well, he probably did. That's a problem.
Maybe so.
The first tattoo parlor I ever went into, the guy was standing, giving the tattoo, smoking, and drinking from a bottle of Jim Beam. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to go down the street to the Asian guy. who's sober.
That might have been what Alan did, though. And Alan was, the dude was like, Johnny Cash?
I want that guy.
White guy with pompadour. Oh, okay. I can do that. But it does look like Johnny Cash. But all that aside.
Plus, I think Okami, what I saw, I'm still not certain he's got his head back.
No, that Boetsch fight really was disconcerting because that was a fight he was dominating utterly, and then he just let it go.
And Belcher fights with fire, and eye problems are not the same as other types of physical problems.
No, although it can make you a little leery, I think, because the risk is you're going to be blind.
Yeah, you're going to be. It didn't stop Sugar Ray Leonard, I mean,
it's true.
I mean, the thing is,
but Sugar Ray's eye still looks funky when he.
Yeah, but if you walk through your day and you're seeing, I mean, it's a illness without an injury. I mean, it doesn't feel bad.
Have you had any retina injuries yourself?
I have not.
Okay, well then.
Have you?
No, but I'm just saying we don't know from retina injuries from first person.
But if you had some, I mean, it just affects the way you see.
Yeah,
I fight with a guy who got his eye kicked out. That guy.
But they popped it back in.
No, he lost his eye, man.
Oh, that's
he lost his eye, and he didn't have the. I mean, it was a clear case of why you need health care reform. They said, well, we have surgery that could fix your eye.
But you can't afford it.
$20,000. Okay, can't afford that. Okay, well then you're going to lose your eye. We could actually outfit you with a glass eye. That's $5,000. Can't afford that. Well, we can sew your eyelid shut.
The price
how much
is
does
right.
that cost? That's like $10 to sew your eyelid shut. So the guy's got, and at first.
At that point, it's like the cup poured in my hand.
Right.
I'll just super glue this sucker shut.
You're right. Save the $10. I'll give you some super glue. So
so you're picking Belcher too.
I'm picking Belcher, man. I think I'm concerned about the state of Okami's head. And I mean, look, losing to the guys he's lost to.
No shame.
No shame, but it doesn't change the fact that the guy is, and anyway, it's not. There are a lot of factors against him. He walks in, he's got no home base, and people.
Chael Sonnen's mom's house is apparently his home base in the U.S. Yes.
Oh, that's
She nearly shot him one night. Apparently.
She shot him.
No, nearly.
Why?
He walked into her house at 1 a.m. unexpected, and only knows 3 words of English, and was trying to turn off the burglar alarm. And she was screaming through the door, and he didn't reply at first. And then he heard the gun click, and he goes, "Yushin Okami, thank you."
Did Chael mention to his mother that he was coming by, or?
No, because Yushin told him he was staying somewhere else. So,
Name.
Well,
now we know that Chael's mom is armed.
And according to Chael, convicted felon and repeated documented liar, she's a prize-winning target shooter. So, which she very well may be. I'm just saying Chael said it, so I'm not going to just repeat it as fact. That's all I'm saying.
Right, well, he's a
solid
journalist. And
I'm learning slowly but surely, transforming from fan to journalist.
So I think Okami. I mean. So now you've said it all. He's been hanging out with dude, perennial second place finisher. But I kind of, I like the.
I don't think there's anything wrong with training with Chael.
No, I don't.
It doesn't seem to rub off on.
No, he's a tough guy, but I just,
Henderson.
it's a vibery, vibery. And who else is part of that camp? Like Matt Lindland.
Well, Lindland and Chael, I think, split up
they had a fall
because of the second place son and.
That's right.
Thing,
that's right. Right. So in any case, I think Okami's head is a big question mark at this point, and I need to see something more from him before I feel. I mean,
for sure.
Belcher. Every time I see the guy fight, it's like his head's on fire.
And he's improved. He just keeps improving.
He's educable.
Okami's had his title shot. Okami knows where he stands in the food chain. It's title contender.
Yep.
I could have been a contender. He knows it's not. I could have been a contender. I was a contender. Yeah. He had a shot. He lost badly. Yep. Where do you go from there? And Belcher.
Now he should be like Kwai Chan Kane and just wander the land. Wander the land looking for meaning.
He should go revitalize Japanese MMA is what he should do. He should go find some young fighters and bring them to America and train them with modern techniques.
Yeah. I know guys who have trained over in Japan, MMA, and there's some good fighters there. But
a lot of talent's still there.
There's no.
The gyms are just behind the times, and so that brings us to the other middleweight contest, which was supposed to be Tim Boetsch versus Chris Weidman, which would have been probably a #1 contenders match because Weidman's on fire. Yep. But Weidman's lost his house in the flood, had some serious injuries. Weidman's out for several months. Tim Boetsch is fighting a substitute, Konstantinos Philippou, who's a good boxer, has shown some flashes, trains under Matt Serra. I think very formidable guy. He's frustrated me because first couple of fights, it seemed like he was slow to pull the trigger.
Yep.
Then he suddenly showed a lot of boxing, showed what he could do, really beat somebody up. Then his next fight, he was flat again. Yeah. Then his last fight, he looked good. Yeah. So I don't know where he is. He can't. And Tim Boetsch, I think, is a little bit inflated in the ratings right now because he beat Yushin Okami, and Boetsch earned that win. I mean, he took an ass beating for 2 rounds, stayed in it, stayed calm, took his shot, knocked the guy out. But still, he was getting his ass kicked for 2.5 rounds. And then his last fight, he fought Hector Lombard, who claims he had a broken sternum. Right. And I thought Lombard won that fight.
Yeah,
do you think?
I did.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't mad when he lost because he sucked. It was a terrible fight. And so Boetsch won a terrible fight on an iffy decision as well.
Man, I would really like to know what was going on in Lombard's head in that fight.
Broken sternum, I think, will...
Yeah, that'll slow you down, but I mean, I guess, then you don't show up, but I guess you do need to get paid. So this fight, I feel, I don't know.
I think I'm going to pick the upset. I'm going to go with Philippou here. I think he matches up well with Boetsch. I don't think that Boetsch is a good wrestler, but he doesn't use it as well as he could.
Right. I have no dog in this hunt, but for the sake of a gentleman's
disagreement,
I will take
just to be disagreeable.
But I'm not going to be. There won't be any sackcloth and ashes thing come Monday if it turns out that Boetsch loses. I'm not going to be sitting down by the river by the van again. not for Boetsch. For my other picks, yes, but not for Boetsch.
Not for Boetsch. Not for Boetsch. I'm going to go with Costa to get the upset.
It's a lukewarm recommend, So sorry.
That brings us to the co-main event, which the co-main event was supposed to be Forrest Griffin versus Phil Davis, which would have been pretty hot.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
But sadly,
I think we will never see this.
I think you're right. I think we might have seen the end of Forrest Griffin in the cage.
That's where I'm going.
His heart hasn't been in it. He's had a couple New York Times bestsellers. Books don't sell, don't make any money, but a bestseller will make you some money.
Don't get me started.
So, and I think Forrest, it seems like he's taking...
You know what my agent and the label said? They said, the publishing house, he said, hey, we consider a book that sells over 10,000 copies a success. You know how many copies I sold to the fight book? 9,478.
Oh. We'll have a link in this post. You can buy it on Amazon. You can get Eugene one step closer to success.
So it was like having the world's most terrible withholding father. It's like, we always knew you would fail, Mr. Robinson, but not quite so spectacularly.
You narrowly succeeded.
Yeah, and so in that Forrest's book I watched it go up the charts, and it was like...
it was funny.
Yeah.
I mean, as far as pre-MMA books that I've
He's
done. He's done. He probably won't be back. But that brings us to the fight we do have.
Yes.
Jim Miller, Joe Lausanne, 2 veteran UFC lightweights, 2 top-tier fighters, never quite made it to neither one's ever even made it to number 1 contenders fight. And Miller had like a 6-7 fight winning streak at one point.
I'll step out in front with this one, Lausanne.
Ooh, bold.
I've heard from guys... Spies I have in Miller's training camp. I go, how is it training with Miller? He goes, he hits like an old lady.
Well, he's never been known as he's a grappler. He's a wrestler and a grappler.
So is Josh Koscheck.
Well, Koscheck.
And he hits hard.
Koscheck's a sprawling brawler.
Yeah.
He's not a grappler.
Dan Henderson hits hard too.
He's again a sprawling brawler.
Yeah,
well, right. Dan's not even a sprawling brawler. Dan's a lumber forward with the right hand, and if you take him down, well, he figures he'll get up.
Right.
But Miller's a wrestler grappler. I mean, he's somebody with a solid wrestling background who's learned submissions really well. Lausanne's a very good grappler too, though.
Yep.
But I feel like Miller's the better wrestler. He'll be on top. Mm-hmm. I don't see Lausanne. I mean, Lausanne. I'll concede Lausanne's probably the better striker of the 2, but I don't think that it's enough to get the knockout.
So you're going to call this for Miller?
I'm calling it for Miller. You know why? His shit-talking has stepped up. He said the shit-talking. He said very nice things. He did an interview recently. He said very nice things about Lausanne, but he did a lot of, in my next fight, I want to make somebody look bad. And the only guy in the cage with him is going to be Lausanne. So he's coming with bad intentions.
Well, I like Miller because he comes from a family of Millers, right? So any family that you have with a bunch of brothers, the guys are usually insane competitors, because they've been
his brother Dan Miller, the UFC middleweight.
Yeah, right. So I mean, Mark Schultz was telling me that when he lost to Dave, he slept in the car for 2 days, because he was like couldn't deal with it at first. So. They're usually fierce.
Well, Lausanne's got his brother, own brother.
Yeah, Lausanne's a tough guy, man. I don't think. And
they're both brothers with a guy's named Dan.
Oh Oh, wow, good for you. Good for you.
Putting it
But
together.
and also, but I think this is one of those fights that I love. That's a fight for extended significance. In other words, I think that the guy who loses this fight is a guy who will have to wait very long time for his next fight. You know,
his next big fight.
Yeah. So So he's slipping to the back of a very long line from which he may never emerge to the front.
Yeah, both of these guys have had their ups and then downs, and they're both trying to get it back on the upturn.
So they got to do something. They got to do something. So in any case, you know, I mean.
So how are you seeing Lausanne winning this?
A knockout.
Knockout.
Yeah.
Knockout.
Yeah. Or TKO with ground. So I could be crazy. The idea that Miller would ever be on the bottom, but you know, your mind gets confused when you start mixing wrestling and then jiu-jitsu. It really is. Like, you know, my kid has talked about it. Like she has to adjust to like, you know, doing stuff that she would never do with Brazilian jiu-jitsu. Like, you know, roll into your stomach. You know,
because she came from a jiu-jitsu background. Now she's a high school wrestler.
Correct. Yeah.
So it's confusing. But and so these guys are all mixed up.
Yeah. So mixed martial arts. It actually takes. I've met more than one person who said, you know, MMA is stupid, and I was like, why? Because there's no career path for it. You know, it's like not you. If you teach Brazilian jiu-jitsu, you can do that until you're Helio's age. You know? MMA, man, it requires a whole different skill set, and you know, clearly guys who are in their 60s are not going to be doing it, except for a few. I'm not 60 yet, but you know, you give me some chances.
We'll be soon. Right, it's going to be the custom motto of MMA.
It'll be 10 years.
time flies.
So I'm going to pick Lausanne. You know, I recently had some guys I know who trained with him said he's on fire going into this. He's prepared. He's coming to win.
He certainly looks good against Melvin Guillard, who smoked Jim Miller. Of course, that's MMA math, which isn't valid.
MMA math is valid, and the guys in the mind. I mean, you know, the guys who are fighting are thinking about the math. So that's from that point of view, it counts toward quite a lot. You know.
All right.
We're sitting on balance balls, by the way. That's what's happening.
We're rubbing our balls together here. It's only a matter of time. So that leads us to the headliner, which we've already made our picks. Do you remember who you picked?
Yeah, of course. I picked friend of Knuckle Up, Cain Velasquez.
Cain Velasquez. I picked Junior Dos Santos. Although I've been sort of second guessing myself.
I knew it. Because I could feel the vibes in the air.
Well, because I'm a born second guesser. I'm a flip flopper.
Well, now why?
Because I rewatched his fights with Shane Carwin and Roy Nelson.
Yep.
And in both of those fights, he was beating the crap out of both guys, especially Carwin. But in both of those fights, after 2.5 rounds, when he realized he wasn't going to get the knockout with his fists, he didn't have a plan B. Yep. He didn't switch to kicking. He didn't go for takedowns. He just punched less often.
Right.
And with less ferocity. So I think, and Cain, everything I've heard and seen and read about Cain Velasquez is that he's got incredible drive and grit. Yep. So if Dos Santos doesn't win this early, I think Velasquez is going to get his belt back.
Yep.
By decision.
Yep.
Do you think he'll stop Dos Santos?
I don't. There's a possibility.
Because we've never seen Dos Santos on his back. I mean,
correct. That's where he'll start.
He's been there very briefly,
right.
And he pops back up like a jack in the box.
My favorite thing is do you remember when he fought Brock Lesnar, and he got Brock down, and you could see that the lesson of Shane Carwin, he was like his first two punches, like he put a lot of grit into them, and then he kind of remembered Shane Carwin, and he just started. Measured, not enough to tire me out, but to score some points and to keep the big man down on the ground. I mean, this is a guy who's like, you know, he's making micro calculations really fast in the midst of a fight.
He seems like a smart fighter.
He's a smart fighter, and the guy.
His chin can be questioned, but not his fight IQ.
Yeah, okay. Well,
I mean, he's fighting monsters. He's fighting giant mammals.
Based on getting hit by Dos Santos, I think.
And Chet Congo. Rocking repeatedly.
Yeah.
Every time he touches, but Cain recovered.
What he said he almost stayed in his room for 2 weeks after the Chet Congo fight because he said what he hated about that is that he didn't listen to Javier. He went off book. You know, like he said, you know, if I listen to Javier, I win. If I don't listen to Javier, I don't win. In that one with Congo, he kind of decided to adopt and adapt, and it was like the wrong way. And he hated that performance. Hated himself. Upgraded himself for it. So again, highly educable fighter. He's I think he's learned. And
You've almost got me on the verge of changing my pick.
Yeah,
also because I want the third fight. I don't want this to be another blowout. I don't want to see Cain Velasquez exiled to the wilderness. He's young. Yeah. You know, I want to see these guys have a great series. So I'm going to switch.
Look,
I'm going to pick Cain Velasquez.
Nobody really wants that because he's a hell of a gatekeeper. Imagine if you're in the heavyweight division. It's like, okay, yeah, Cain may not beat Dos Santos, but I'm never going to beat Cain. So what am I doing?
They would have to put Cain in the sort of after you lose to the champion, then you get to fight Cain.
Right.
Kind of thing. Which is cruel. Which is very cruel.
What I thought was interesting, though, to segue for a bit, we were talking about Cormier, and Cormier said exactly what you should say if you really have no intention of fighting a guy from your team. John Jones was kind of soft about whether or not he would fight Rashad, and then Rashad got his feelings hurt.
It's proud and ugliness.
Yeah, and then
lucrative ugliness.
Yeah, and then some guys, Anderson Silva, got soft about GSP. But Cormier said he had a great quote. Was it yesterday where he goes, "These are the reasons I will never fight Cain." I came here. It was the same situation as John Jones and Rashad Evans. The guy has treated me like a beyond a brother. There's no way. There's no way I'm going to repay that by, he gave and gave and gave himself to me and helped me put me in the position I am. I'm not going to repay that by.
So Cormier is talking moving down to light heavyweight. Yep. Should Cain win the title? Yep. And he's carrying some extra weight that he could diet off.
Yeah,
but he's got the kidney problem, so he can't cut weight.
Yeah, right.
So he'd have to seriously diet and plan a game plan to get to 205. But just to tie it all together neatly, so that's what Cris Cyborg should be working on right now. Yeah. Changing her cycle, changing her regimen, and
I can't believe
losing some muscle.
I can't believe she can't lose that weight.
There's no way. I mean, sure she can't cut from 170 to 135 without serious problems, but diet. Do some more long-distance running, swim. Or, change your regimen.
I've seen Nick Diaz a lot heavier, walking around a lot heavier than when he's not doing swimming and preparing for the triathlons. I mean, he's a big guy, but he's also, he at one point was talking about, I'll fight him at 160, I'll fight him at 170, I'll fight him at 190. I mean, if you're talking about a 40-pound variance, man, some guy was telling me about the wrestler trick they used to lose the weight. And at first, I was down with it. He was like, okay, you drink a lot of water. They switch to distilled water. And then halfway through, I just started to feel like I was in crazy town. He goes, and then you put pebbles in your food. I mean, it was just crazy. And he said, you do that, you lose 45 pounds. I was like, you know what?
And one day you wake up with Daniel Cormier's kidneys.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, when I finally left bodybuilding behind, I was so happy because I didn't have to diet anymore. And then I started fighting, and I was like,
Gotta diet again.
It was much better for me to fight when I was a big fat bastard. When I weighed 260, that was great. I went into AKA and then to fight, and all the guys were like, I want to fight him. I want to fight him because I was just so big. No cardio, no technique, nothing. Got beaten all the time. So, but eventually you start to lose weight, and now I'm struggling. So. But I think Cormier, I thought it was a class way to deal with it. I thought it was really nice, and it really bespoke to the kind of connection between them as people, and
Yeah, well, Fitch and Koscheck have never broken their vows to fight against each other, and it seems like the interest in that fight has gone away. So, score one for camaraderie, even though Koscheck walked away from the gym.
Yeah, Silva and Dana are out there listening. If these guys give any kind of dog whistle signals like, well, I don't know about, boom, they're on it. If you say, I'm not doing that.
If you show weakness.
It's like, if I give you a plate with dog crap on it and say, would you eat that? And then you go, well, hey, I'm halfway there. You didn't say no, you said well.
That's the old George Bernard Shaw joke to the lady, would you sleep with me for $1 million? And she says, well, of course. And then he goes, would you sleep with me for $1? What do you think I am? And he's like, we already established what you are. Now we're haggling over price.
I love that.
That's
a great quote.
That's George Bernard Shaw.
Yeah. Read Man and Superman. That's a great book, George Bernard Shaw.
Good stuff. And I think on that elevated, erudite note from the
look at this hair. This is
it's got the gray streak.
Yeah, I got that.
So. That's if I I would love to have had a gray streak, but that wasn't my hand in life. Regardless, Happy New Year, everybody. We'll be back. I'll be back I'm hoping to do a preview with Dallas Winston at 155. Then I'll be back with the bathrobe review. Eugene, you doing a knuckle up this week?
Yes, I am
Eugene,
doing knuckle up this week.
This guy is reliable.
Yeah, that's what somebody said. I never expected he would get more than 2 shows done. What led you to believe that? Come on.
I never doubted, because this guy, he's in Belgium in a boat somewhere and he's got Wi-Fi and he's doing those shows. So he's money. So anyway, we'll be back.
That boat was that was that weird show where the police were in the river with police divers
dredging for a body.
While I'm doing the show.
Yeah,
like,
they probably weren't looking for somebody's car keys.
No.
Probably had a name.
But I'm back in the USA now, as are you. So your next show, you'll be back in Texas.
Yep, I'll be back. Well, no, I'll be dealing one more from California, hopefully with Dallas Winston, although it'll be a remote thing, and we'll see if I can work out the technology on that to do it. Okay. And but we'll be back next week to look back at UFC 155 and look forward to what I don't even know what's coming next at this point.
I'll be gloating.
We'll see. We'll see.
My correct picks.
We'll see.
I'll be
celebrating. I think we'll be talking about it.
Top of the mark.
We'll be talking about a Todd Duffy title shot. That's what I think. Well, thanks a lot, everybody. Hope you enjoyed it. And remember to subscribe to MMA Nation on YouTube, and you'll get these things brought to you ASAP. Take care.
All right.